NBC's Shaquille Brewster is on the ground in Wisconsin ahead of the Trump event. And again, we are going to go into this Boeing hearing. So if I have to interrupt you, Shaq, I'm so sorry. But tell me about the reaction of Wisconsinites toward Donald Trump and whether this is dampening the turnout for his rally.
There's no sign that it is, Katie, right now. I mean, that language that you heard that was reported from Donald Trump when he was talking to House Republicans, that's something that Republicans here in the state of Wisconsin say themselves. I've covered this state for several years, and it has come up at Republican events over and over, talking about crime in Milwaukee, talking about what they believe was lack of election integrity in Milwaukee. Again, that's all been studied. That's been adjudicated. The election was fair and free, and Donald Trump won here, or excuse me, Donald Trump lost here. But what you are hearing from folks here are what they want to hear from him on stage. Issues like immigration, issues like the economy. And the interesting thing there is the economy is something that Democrats in this state are almost daring him to talk about. And that's because they want to highlight the reason why President Biden was here in Racine, this exact town, just last month. They want to highlight that President Biden was able to bring a major manufacturing project, a $3.3 billion project, to this town when Donald Trump failed, or at least failed to deliver what he promised when he was president with that Foxconn project. But when you talk to his supporters, you bring those facts to them, they're not focused on those details. They're focused on the posture that you hear from Donald Trump and the emotion that he evokes from them. I want you to listen to just one of my conversations that I had with someone that kind of paints that picture of why it's so hard for the economic message that you're hearing from the Democrats to overcome what they see from Donald Trump.
Almost patient-hearted.
When you are talking to your friends about Donald Trump, what are you saying to them?
He's for the people. I'm getting emotional. I don't know.
You're getting emotional?
Yeah.
Why?
I feel like he actually cares about the country. And it takes somebody who's been in business. America's ran like a business. It really is. And there were so many less wars, so many gas prices, everything was cheaper. And with Biden, I just feel like the world has changed a lot.
Ladies and gentlemen, please.
Something that is breaking through and seeming to break through with some of these Republican voters here is what we're going to hear later from President Biden at the White House. That immigration announcement will shield about 500,000 people from the prospect of possible deportation if it survives legal challenges. That is something that people here are very upset about, and you can bet Donald Trump will mention it when he's on stage, Katie.
Shaq Brewster. Shaq, thank you very much. Let's bring in Mark Leibovich, a staff writer at The Atlantic and an MSNBC political contributor, and Jim Messina, who served as the White House Deputy Chief of Staff in the Obama White House and the campaign manager for Obama's 2012 re-election campaign. So, gentlemen, thanks for being here. Mark, what do you think about Donald Trump going back to Wisconsin?
Well, I mean, you'll notice he's not in Milwaukee, he's in Racine. I mean, that's the kind of place where he would presumably do much better than in Milwaukee. I mean, there is something very familiar about the playbook of trashing a city, a predominantly black city. This is, he is sort of signaling in some ways to the suburban voters that he desperately needs, that he does not want to associate himself with that. And he would say specifically it's the crime, it's the homelessness, it's all the things that people would sort of crudely associate with the inner city. Whether he's actually spent or has any real-time knowledge of Milwaukee is pretty dubious, I would say. But look, this is kind of bred out of the Republican playbook. It doesn't surprise me. I don't suspect it will hurt him beyond maybe a little bit of short-term embarrassment, but he doesn't seem terribly capable of embarrassment on something like this.
Yeah, this does feel like, Jim, much of what we've already and had been have heard from Donald Trump over the years. It also reminds me of what he used to say about Philadelphia in the lead up to elections. You got to watch Philadelphia and the not so subtle overtones of what he was suggesting there. The Democrats, though, are using this. They're trying to with these billboards. What does that accomplish?
Well, it accomplishes two things. One, Democrats need to continue to consolidate their base and fire up their voters in Milwaukee. This will certainly help there. And Mark and I would agree that the way you win Wisconsin is the suburbs of Milwaukee. And they're trying to say to these suburban voters, hey, this impacts you too. This makes your city right near you much more controversial. And I think it's more than just a one-day story, because he's going to be back here for 4 days at the Republican convention and have to hear this and see billboards and see the Democrats wail away. And as Mark and I can attest, the problem with Donald Trump's campaign is he continues to say crazy things that blow up his message for a day or 2 days. And it's just, we have 139 days left, Katie. And when you start to like set yourself on fire, it's just not very helpful to your campaign.
How does this penetrate, though, to the voting blocs or the voters that aren't paying attention to cable news, that aren't watching television, that maybe aren't seeing these billboards? Voters who are more siloed in social media. Maybe they're not voters who pay attention to politics, but are just fed information from the various algorithms that they use. How do you find a way into those spheres, Jim, if you're the Biden team?
Well, a couple things. One, big events get into those spheres. To Katie's point, swing voters only think about politics 4 minutes a week. And in that time, they really kind of react to the big news. And the biggest news we've seen that's really moving swing voters right now is the Trump conviction. And now 2/3 of these what I call double doubters that are going to decide this election now think Donald Trump shouldn't be running. That's a big deal. I kind of agree with Mark that it's unlikely that this one-day statement about Milwaukee is going to push through that. But the way you start to get it pushed through is have people talk to their friends and family about why this was a bad statement and why it hurt the whole place.
Got it. Jim, thank you very much. Mark, thank you.